Part 2 of my Paul Lynde video will find out how his drinking eventually led to his early demise and the scandal that rocked Hollywood that took place at a San Francisco hotel just down the block from another notorious San Francisco hotel. Okay, I'm looking at it on my page now. He actually called it Bachelors with Beef. It's a double entendre for sure. And the actual recipe is extremely simple, but it's got a lot of canned ingredients, canned beans, canned this, canned that. And I think you cook it in the oven for 7 hours. So I thought you could probably substitute fresh ingredients for the canned ingredients. He has tapioca in this thing. It's kind of weird. But yeah, Bachelors with Beef, he called it. So that was sort of the euphemism for gays back then, was confirmed bachelor. They called them confirmed bachelors. So that was sort of a euphemism for them. He carried a grudge. If he thought that you wronged him, he would carry a grudge forever. And he was nasty about it. Okay. He was involved in an incident. This happened in 1965. He was at the Sir Francis Drake Hotel in San Francisco. And it's called something else now, and please forgive me, but I don't know what it's called now. They completely ruined that hotel. It's awful. Used to be the Sir Francis Drake. Used to have this gorgeous red-themed lobby. He had these beautifully, dressed up in beefeater uniformed personnel at the door, waiting to open your car for you, waiting to take your luggage. They were always highly stylized in this sort of like British beefeaters costumes. That's all gone. The beautiful lobby stuff is all gone. They've stripped it down. It looks extremely modern. But anyway, back to Paul Lynde. In 1965, he was in this hotel. Okay, and I'm gonna read this part on my on my page. Paul Lynde was staying at the Sir Francis Drake Hotel in San Francisco in 1965 when a young man he was partying with fell to his death. This young man they called him a young actor, but he was actually in the P-word films. Okay, he was a P-word star, a hustler. Okay, and so this is from the bio. His name was Bing Davidson, which must be a stage name, right? Oh, there was Bing Crosby, so who knows? Lynde was involved in an accident in which a young actor, reputed to be his lover, because he probably hired him for the night, fell to his death from the window of the hotel in San Francisco. The two had been drinking for hours before 24-year-old James Bing Davidson decided that he was going to scare Paul Lynde. So what he did was he climbed out the window. He was gonna be like, I'm falling, here I am, I'm falling. This was 8 stories up. Well, he climbed out the window to do this little stunt, like, I'm falling. And he actually did fall. So, oops. Yeah. Okay. How are you gonna cover that up? They did cover it up. Okay. They did cover it up. The event was witnessed by 2 policemen, and it was somehow kept out of the press. I don't think it was entirely kept out of the press, because Paul Lynde would later refer back to this incident as the main thing that destroyed his reputation. And I'm like, not that time you got arrested for being drunk and disorderly off at a gay bar while you were playing on the Donnie and Marie show, and they canceled you from that show and you got a mugshot. Not that time. I could go on at all the stuff that happened to him before he finally kicked the bucket. But yeah, he thinks that was the thing that ruined his reputation. So after The Bewitched, I think he did 10 episodes of that. He did over 1,000 episodes of the Hollywood Squares. At one point, he left the show, but then he was coaxed back with the promise that he would get co-star billing with Peter Marshall. So he went ahead and went back to it, and he remained with that show until 1981. So interestingly, in 1972, Lynde starred in a short-lived ABC sitcom, The Paul Lynde Show. This is interesting on a couple levels. It was about an uptight attorney and father who was at odds with his liberal-minded son-in-law. Sound familiar? All in the Family much? So, yeah, and the other interesting thing is, of course, he's playing a straight dad and husband. And so he didn't mind. It's money, right? And he was able to do a lot of sexual innuendos, and he was actually quite good in it, and he received a Best Actor Golden Globe Award for it. People liked him. People didn't like the show. So it was canceled after one season. Okay, that's not horrible. So he did a lot of television specials, and the one that comes to mind to me was his Halloween special with Kiss, and he dressed up like a witch, and yeah, that was a pretty cool special, and I'm not sure, I probably watched that thing. He had the Paul Lynde Comedy Hour, in which Jack Albertson from Chico and the Man was there, and Nancy Walker, and he had the Osmonds on there. The Paul Lynde Comedy Hour, there was a lot of Paul Lynde Comedy Hours. One was on May in 1978. One was in April of 1977. And his Halloween special was in October. I for sure watched this in 1976. Definitely watched that. And something called Paul Lynde Goes Mad with Marie Osmond and Charo and Vicki Lawrence in 1979. So he never really stopped working, and he continued with his television work, and he continued to rake in the money. He bought Errol Flynn's old home at one point in the 70s, and he lived there with his dog. I think this was Harry McAfee, I think. And he absolutely loved this. He was over the top in love with this dog. I'm not sure, you guys, if this is the house that was featured in House Beautiful. He had 2 homes that I know of that were really nice. But when his dog died in this house, he simply couldn't bear to live in this house with all the memories of this dog. That's how much he loved this dog. So he moved out of that house and moved into another house and bought another dog named Alfred, I think, and that was a large black standard poodle. There's no word on whether or not he loved Alfred as much as he loved the other dog, but that's the dog he had when he died. So we're just going to talk a little bit about the day that he died. On January 10th in 1982, Lynde was invited to a birthday party. One of his friends invited him to a birthday party. It was Paul Barassi. This was a good friend of his. And Paul responded with, "Yeah, I'd love to come. I'll bring you a surprise birthday gift." But he never showed up. And that wasn't like Paul Lynde. Especially with a good friend, he would definitely show up. Okay, so this Paul Barassi and another friend became concerned because they couldn't get a hold of him, wasn't answering his phone, and he didn't show up for the party. So they went to his house. They became even more concerned because they saw that his car was there, and they heard Alfred barking frantically, but there were no lights on or anything. So they called the cops. the Beverly Hills cops, and the cops said it's going to be a little bit of time before they can get out there because, you know, this isn't a real emergency. Just because he's not answering his phone, he's an adult, he doesn't have to answer his phone. So instead of waiting for the cops, they broke into a side entrance, and the house was dark, and they eventually made their way to Lynde's bedroom, and they found him dead on his bed. The following description is from Find a Grave. I put this description on my page, and I'm going to read it to you. They found Paul in bed, lying on his back, his body twisted, and his hand outstretched, reaching for a bedside panic button to alert the alarm service. His hair was neatly combed. His blue eyes were wide open. The body was cold and stiff, so it was already in rigor. When Barassi broke in, the alarm blared, indicating Lynde was alone at the time of his death. There was rumors he had a prostitute in there, but I don't think so. They don't think so. The coroner ruled the death a heart attack. He said he essentially had the heart of an old man. He said the coroner indicated that though he was only 55, his heart resembled that of an old man's. In addition to having a drinking problem, he took sexual enhancement drugs, and he was a chain smoker. You shouldn't do these things when you have a bad tick. When by sexual enhancement drugs, I don't mean Viagra because that wasn't around then. But I took speed and meth and other drugs that were not meant to be used for that purpose, And he had a vial of something called poppers. Speed, I guess. He had that on his nightstand. Someone said he had vodka, but I heard that he'd gotten clean 6 months before that. He had got dried out from the booze. But he had a pack of cigarettes over there on his nightstand. So he was trying to quit smoking because he had some devices in his ears that they said would help you to quit smoking. But he had a pack of cigarettes right there. I guess the doctor had told him, you're not going to live much longer if you keep drinking and smoking like this because you never were born with a strong heart. Both your parents died of heart disease in their mid-50s, and so are you, if you don't clean up your act. So I was trying, I guess, to clean up his act, but he just didn't get to it soon enough. So this was 1982. He was 55 years old. That's not long. But he did make his little mark on the world, right? Everybody knows Paul Lynde. Everybody remembers that snarky smile of his. And if you didn't know him really well and didn't get on his bad side, he was probably fun to be around, But he was a mean drunk. So best to stay away from him when he got like that. Okay, so that'll do it. Forgot to tell you guys in the beginning of the video, please like and subscribe. Also have a new channel. It's about fashion. I kind of have fun with it. I've got 14 whole subscribers on there. Take that. And I will link to that fashion channel if you're interested. All right, guys. I guess that will do it for now. Please check out my books on Amazon. That would be great. And I guess I will see you next week.